Okay, let's just dive right in. There's this bombshell class action lawsuit that is absolutely shaking the foundations of the music streaming world. And right at the center of it all, you've got the biggest artist on the planet, Drake, the streaming giant Spotify, and a wild accusation of fraud on a massive scale. But look, this isn't just about one superstar. It's really about the fairness of how every single musician gets paid in this digital age.
37 billion. Just let that sink in. That is the insane number of streams for Drake on Spotify that this lawsuit claims contains a, quote, substantial, non-trivial percentage of fake plays. I mean, it's a number so big it's kind of hard to even wrap your head around, and it is the explosive core of a legal fight that could totally redefine the entire streaming industry.
So, who's making this huge claim? Well, the lawsuit was filed by a rapper named Eric Dwayne Collins, who you might know as RBX. He's also Snoop Dogg's cousin, by the way. But here's the most important detail. The real kicker, the lawsuit isn't against Drake. Nope. The one and only target is Spotify. The accusation is that the platform is just turning a blind eye, and in doing so, it's basically siphoning money away from every other legit artist out there.
To really get to the heart of this whole thing, we first have to understand how artists actually get paid on Spotify. It all boils down to this system called the pro rata model. And trust me, understanding this is the key to seeing why fake streams aren't just empty numbers. They have a very, very real and super damaging financial impact on everyone else.
Okay, so here's how it works. Every month, Spotify takes all the money it made from subscriptions, from ads, all of it, and dumps it into one giant pool. Then they look at every single stream that happened that month. Your payout? It's all about your share of that total stream count. So if your song's got, say, 1% of all streams, you get 1% of the money from that pool. Simple, right? Well, this system has a really critical vulnerability.
Let's try a little analogy. Imagine all that royalty money is one giant pizza. Every real stream is like a ticket that gets an artist a piece of that pie. The more streams or tickets you have, the bigger your slice is going to be. Now, fake streams, the ones generated by bots, they're like counterfeit tickets. They're used to claim a slice of the pizza, but they're not legit. And here's the thing. The pizza itself doesn't get any bigger. So instead, every legitimate artist's slice just gets smaller. Those counterfeit tickets are just watering down the value for everybody else.
All right, now that we all understand the pizza pie situation, let's look at the actual ingredients of this lawsuit. The complaint filed by RBX goes into some pretty remarkable detail, using Drake's account as the main example of what it claims is a platform-wide problem of just rampant, unchecked streaming fraud that helps the biggest names at the expense of, well, everyone else. This quote right here is the central accusation. The lawsuit is basically saying this isn't about Spotify being unable to catch the bad guys. No. It alleges the company is willfully ignorant. But why? Well, the suit argues Spotify is under a ton of pressure from shareholders to show growth. More users, more engagement. And fake users generating fake streams, they help pump up those numbers, which can boost ad sales and make the stock price look good. The lawsuit is essentially saying Spotify's financial goals are completely out of whack with the artists. And look, the lawsuit doesn't just make these broad claims, it gives some very specific data points as evidence. It points to abnormal VPN usage to hide where streams are coming from. For instance, it brings up this 4-day period where Drake's song No Face got 250,000 streams that actually came from Turkey, but were masked by VPNs to look like they were from the UK. I mean, that just shows you how sophisticated these schemes can get. This right here, this might be the most damning piece of data in the whole complaint. The suit claims that a tiny, tiny number of users are responsible for a massive chunk of Drake's streams. According to one claim, less than 1% of his listeners generated about 9% of his total plays. Another claim says that less than 2% of users accounted for a whopping 15% of his streams. This kind of pattern is a huge red flag for fake activity. It points directly to bots, not real people listening to music. So what's the bottom line here? The lawsuit estimates that the financial hit from this alleged fraud, just from Drake's music alone, is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That's hundreds of millions that, according to the plaintiff, should have gone to other legitimate artists. Basically, stolen slices from that pizza pie we were just talking about. Okay, so that is a very, very serious set of accusations. But of course, there are two sides to every story, so let's pivot and take a look at Spotify's response. The company completely rejects the idea that it benefits from any of this and argues that it's a leader in fighting what it calls an industry-wide challenge. In their official statement, a Spotify spokesperson was crystal clear.
They said the company in no way benefits from artificial streaming. They're positioning themselves not as someone who helps it happen, but as a victim and a fighter of the problem, really highlighting their heavy investment in tech and systems made specifically to find and get rid of this kind of fraud. And this is where you can really see the two opposing stories side by side. The lawsuit claims Spotify is motivated by shareholder pressure to just let the fraud happen. But Spotify counters that, saying this is an industry-wide problem that hurts them too. The plaintiff calls their anti-fraud efforts just window dressing, while Spotify lists all the things they do: remove fake streams, withhold royalties, and even charge financial penalties. It's a fundamental disagreement on both why this is happening and what's being done about it.
And Spotify is bringing its own data to the fight. They point to a recent criminal case as proof that their systems are actually working. In that case, a fraudster stole $10 million from a bunch of different streaming services. But of that massive amount, only $60,000 came from Spotify. The company argues this proves their best-in-class systems are way more effective at stopping fraud than the rest of the industry.
You know, it's really important to realize this lawsuit isn't just happening in a vacuum. The entire music industry is at war with streaming fraud. It's being fueled by these sophisticated bot farms and the rise of AI-generated music. People are calling them slop tracks, which are just these low-quality, generic songs made purely to game the system and suck up royalties. This lawsuit is just one major battle in that much, much larger war.
So, with these two completely different stories, and the stakes being so high, where does this all leave us? The lawsuit is really just getting started, and it's bringing up some fascinating and honestly some critical unanswered questions that are probably going to define the next chapter for music streaming. And here's a fascinating little twist for you. There's a bit of irony in Drake being the main example here. Because just last year, Drake himself was part of a lawsuit where he accused Universal Music Group of doing its own streaming fraud to artificially boost the numbers for a Kendrick Lamar diss track aimed at him. Now, that case was dismissed, but it just goes to show you how widespread and messy these accusations of stream manipulation have become. And this brings up a huge question that a lot of legal experts are zeroing in on. Where did the plaintiff get this incredibly specific data? The complaint has precise user percentages and stream origins, information that should be totally internal to Spotify. The lawsuit doesn't say where the data came from, and you can bet Spotify's lawyers are going to make this a central point of their defense. Proving this data is real is going to be a major, major hurdle for the plaintiff. Ultimately, this whole lawsuit forces us to face a much bigger question. As technology gets more and more sophisticated, with AI that can just pump out endless music and bots that can perfectly mimic how humans listen, is it even possible to have a fair and transparent system for paying artists? This case isn't just about Spotify and Drake. It's about whether the whole promise of the streaming era, a democratic and fair marketplace for all musicians, can actually survive this technological onslaught. And that's a question we'll all be watching to see answered.